Okay. So what I was trying to started to go on about before the camera got cut off there. I was gonna mention there's a movie. It's called A Wrinkle in Time. Now I couldn't even get myself to make it through much more than 5 or 10 minutes of the remake of it, but the one from the '90s is good. Um, I feel like the world has kind of headed in that kind of direction. Like I don't know, there was this. Try to remember the names of the characters and stuff. There was they showed this how there was like this darkness that had fallen over the world, and it was making people fight with each other, making people angry, making people apathetic, and just made the world get worse and worse. And they end up traveling to this world where this force that was on Earth had completely taken control. And they get there, and there's like the what they call the it force or whatever. Basically, every house looks exactly identical. Everybody's dressed in the same like gray clothing. There's no difference in variation. Just everybody seems kind of robotic. No emotion. No happiness. No laughter. No playing. Except no individuality. That's sort of how what it looks like we're headed towards here. You notice how everything, like nowadays, compared to the way things used to be, where you look at old architecture or the cars back in the day, the art, everything more aesthetically pleasing, just built in much higher quality standards. Even the styles, the way people would dress back in the old days. Everybody had some fancy hat or walking around in business suits. Women had, beautiful, fancy dresses and all kinds of cool accessorizing. And now you just look out at and you see the houses. They're all these like beautiful, ornate, works of art almost in their design. And now you look at the modern world and you see just all these identical looking houses for miles in some areas, and all these identical little boxy apartment complexes going up everywhere. Cars that you could barely distinguish one car from another because they're just, it's almost like robotic in the way that they're designed. And you listen to the modern music a lot of the time, it's just a lot of kind of empty, soulless, repetitive beats and stuff like that. It's like the soul. You listen to some old song from like Sam Cooke or something, you know, some old song from back in the day. You hear that voice, man, it's like it haunts you. You can feel their words and their emotions. You can feel their soul. You listen to most, modern music now, it's just empty, vapid, shallow. The soul is like dying. It's like our souls, the soul of humanity, the soul of Earth is being stripped from us, and we're left with this kind of emptiness and ugliness, and people going about routine, like robotically, just living for that paper. Gotta live for that dollar. Gotta go get up, go to work, have your job. Money, 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 money. Every hour, every day. Gotta dedicate. Don't think about anything outside the box. Just do what you're told. Get up, go to work, you get that paper, get that paper, get that paper. That's what it's all about now, right? Didn't you see how fucking utterly ridiculous that is? We live in a world where literally everything we could ever desire, like everyone on in this world, say there's 8 billion of us. How many TVs? Like I said, how many TVs do they got to keep manufacturing? How many cars? I mean, if you think about it, there's like more of everything basically by far than there are people in the world. They could stop producing everything like right now, and we'd still have enough for everyone to have everything they ever wanted for like hundreds, if not thousands, of years, because there's just so much stuff that's already been produced. And then besides that, you've got like robots, and artificial intelligence that can do everything as good or better than people can now. you know. So how long is it going to take before people wake up and realize that the way we've been living is not the way things ought to be? I mean, how many more hours are we supposed to give out of every day? How many more years of our life are we supposed to give just to have any kind of roof over our head? How many miles and miles do we have to drive down the street past thousands and thousands of empty, abandoned houses, only to return to just homelessness and poverty? Everything in this world that is needed for our survival as a species is already been built. It's already there. Every house everyone on earth would ever need has already been built, already sits there just waiting for someone to live in it. Every big screen, flat screen TV you could ever want, it's already there. You want 8K? 8K isn't good enough? Here, have a 50K, 9000K. How many more fucking things do we need? How much more pointless crap do they have to manufacture when they've already manufactured millions of things for every one person that's alive on the earth? I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous. And to think that we live in a world of such abundance, and yet and yet there are people living in poverty and people that are starving in some places of the world because we can't just wake the fuck up and see that something terribly wrong with the way that we're being forced to live our lives. Did you ever just get tired of it, Oh, it is the way it is. Just go get a job and just overdo it. I mean, are people ever going to wake up? They got robots that can drive cars, that fly airplanes. I'll bet you they've even got like fighter plane, like drone fighters that could probably win a dogfight against any fucking pilot. You know, they've got there's self-driving cars. They got robots that can pick crops, robots that can plant crops. You know, robots that can harvest seeds. They got robots that can perform surgeries. You walk into a grocery store, what do you see? A bunch of freaking auto self checkout things everywhere. Go into a McDonald's or something, what do you see? The flat screen, bunch of flat screens you're supposed to click on to try and order things. You don't even see somebody pushing a broom anymore. You see some robot driving around vacuuming the floor. You know, that's what we're looking at into the future, and that's it. Already kind of is that way, and the only reason it's not entirely that way is because for some force wants us distracted, wants us constantly in some busy work that's completely unnecessary. That's why there's so much bureaucracy everywhere they got, and so much ridiculous. They gotta fix employment, make sure there's lots of jobs everywhere, because everyone's got to have a job and got to make money, because money, money, money. It's just it's fucking ridiculous. It is absolutely fucking ridiculous. It's the way. I know it's just what we've always done, you know. Well, not really, but yeah, for a couple hundred years, I suppose, and maybe a little longer than that to some extent. But it's just, when are people gonna wake up? You know, wake up and see, you know, humans nowadays are essentially, especially on the capacity in which we've been used and the capacity in which people, the way people, I mean, the value in humanity is actual, like, human characteristics, but nowadays the human characteristics are being, like, beat out of us. Your people are, like, robotic. Do you not see this? People are unconscious and have had to be. It's like the soul of humanity is dying. It's just being suffocated out of us and drugged out of us. And it's just so sad. I mean, can you imagine all the problems in the world that people could solve if they weren't so damn distracted and busy chasing paper all day long, every day? How many new inventions there could be? How many problems in the world could be solved by somebody who just had time on their hands to think? It's freaking really sad. I mean, how do we go from living in a world with just some of the most beautiful art, poetry, and music and architecture, uh, philosophy, etc., to just becoming like this sad shell of like people living just like robots? Just, we sell our entire lives for pieces of paper just to try to have somewhere to sleep and have food to eat. I mean, it's like the powers that be that rule over this place, they just ring a bell and we just go moo, moo, and fucking wander our ass over into the fucking slaughterhouse or whatever, basically, you know? Just, I mean, how... We're told that there's such a shortage of everything, and but, I mean, it's so obvious to see if you really think about it, that's a lie. Like a total lie. We're supposed to believe there's a housing shortage, but that's ridiculous. If you really think about it very much at all, like, you can see that's absolutely ridiculous. It's not that there's a housing shortage. It's that there's a bunch of empty houses and apartments that people can't fucking afford because the prices have been just jacked up through the roof, and because the management agencies that manage the places are mismanaging the hell out of everything. You know how many times, like, I've been trying to get a mobile home for like a year or something. Good luck trying to even find anyone who manages one of these mobile homes that even will answer a phone. You know, you can't even get a hold of anyone because they don't manage anything. They just it's just, everything is like mismanaged everywhere, and there's so many people in like managerial positions that mismanage the fuck out of everything that it's overmanaged. There's like an abundance of bureaucracy built into absolutely everything that makes it practically impossible to get anything done. You know, like I don't know, more. We used to live in a world in a country where it was really the land of milk and honey, land of opportunity. A person could, as they say, pull themselves up by their bootstraps or whatever. You could slap together a hot dog cart or something and start selling hot dogs on the side of the road somewhere. And, you know, 20, 30 years later, you're the owner of an entire Carl's Jr. franchise or McDonald's or something, you know. That's KFC, you know. But it's just not like that anymore. There's too many things in the way, too much bureaucracy everywhere. You know? And the communist ideology sort of takes over everything and convinces you that that's the solution or whatever, but it's really just you're just asking for more and more over mismanagement and bureaucracy. But you can see all the problems with capitalism by the way what we see, but what we see isn't really what it is. Like real capitalism would be, uh, take away the restrictions and shit, and real capitalist, I could go say, make a deal with a newspaper company and buy huge stacks of newspapers for cheap, and then stand out on the side of the road and sell newspapers to people. Get your papers here. Get your newspapers. Got newspapers here. You know, that would be like an example of real capitalism. Or real capitalism. Another thing, like say I made jewelry or something, I could, or if I just bought a bunch of cheap jewelry from China or something. Real capitalism would be I could stand on the side of the road any damn where I want to, or in a parking lot of a grocery store or something, and I could set up a little booth in the corner and say, "Hey, get your jewelry here, jewelry for sale." That would be what like real capitalism would look like. Like you ever see like videos or pictures of like marketplaces in other countries, or like you watch old shows like Hercules and Xena and stuff. You see them walk into a town and there's all these booths set up everywhere. So this guy's selling swords, this guy's selling leather work, this guy's selling food. That's what it used to be like. But now it's like you gotta have like licensing, taxation, registration, certification, this, that, and the other thing to be able to even try to do anything. So if you're trying to start out from nowhere without having a lot of money to start with, you can't do anything. In the old days, the earlier days of this country, there were dentists and doctors that practiced. They didn't have to have a license for any of that shit. They just had to kind of know what they were doing. And if they were no good at their job, then people wouldn't keep going back to them. You know, that's what it used to be. Nowadays, you gotta have a license to cut hair or to be an interior decorator. You can't even help people pick out drapes for their living room without needing some sort of license, and so on. It's just ridiculous. It's like just overly muddled in bureaucracy. Well, all right, then I guess I ranted too more than enough on that subject. I'm not trying to say, like, when I go on about bitching about jobs, I'm not trying to sound like some kind of commie or whatever. I know it's like been beat into us from the time we're a little kid You know, up to this very day, every single day, everywhere you go, everybody has this spiel. It's like the same. We're just beat into this belief that this is the way it is and this is how it works, and you just go do this and you work in your job and you do that. You know, it's just. I mean, are we conscious human beings, or just like ants obeying the queen? Like, what are we? Are we human, or are we Borg? You know, think. Do we think? Do we question things, or do we just assimilate? Like, what do you think?